I'm going to do something different, and I'm not going to let people tell me that I have to show up a certain way in order to have the high-paying jobs, in order to have the success that comes with that, and I can just be me, whatever and however that looks like.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. We are back from our TBM summer break. I know I am feeling so rested and rejuvenated. If you guys have the ability, even if it's one vacation day, to just take off, disconnect. This was the least amount of screen time my phone has seen all year, and I'm telling you, it was the best medicine. So any way you can get present, that is my grounding tip for you all today. Find a way to spend time off screen, IRL, in nature, even if it's just over the weekend. And just watch what that does to your nervous system. Today we have an incredible process episode with Coreen. Coreen has the story that I'm sure we have all been there at one point or another, where there is a dynamic playing out in our lives and we just keep settling for it. It's scary to step into the next thing. It's scary to put ourselves out there. In Coreen's case, she was getting the ping to shift relationships, change cities, and go after her dream job. But she wasn't listening to that call from the universe that where she was at was no longer aligned for her. It led to a rock bottom moment. And that rock bottom moment really opened her eyes of what was possible for her. Fast forward to today, she has launched her dream business, exited that relationship, and is living in such alignment in the places and spaces she desires. She really talks about the power of pings as well. So anyone who is having trouble connecting to your pings or listening to them or following them, here's a great expander of what happens when you listen to your pings. I think you guys are really going to love this episode. And I've got a bunch of questions about this recently, but our summer challenge is going to remain open until Labor Day weekend, which is, I think, September 2nd. So you guys can utilize all of the tools inside this challenge for the rest of the summer. Use them to overcome your biggest block, your biggest limiting belief. If you heard my solo episode a couple weeks back, you know how transformative this challenge has been for me. I feel like a completely new person on the other side of it. And a lot of people were asking, if you have completed the challenge, like, what do you do next? Here's my protocol. I would take your biggest block through the challenge, really commit to those 5 weeks, do the DIs, show up for yourself, and then be present with life. Witness any tests and triggers that come up, because they surely will. That's just a part of life, especially for manifesting our dream life on the other side. But just stay present to things. See how you start to operate differently after overcoming this big limiting belief and block. And step into the joy of life for a little bit. Now, if you want to go back to any of the tools when you're in a hard spot, 100% do so. But I would give yourself a little bit of time. And then what I'm actually going to do is probably about another week or two, I'm going to dive in with another limiting belief and block that came up as I was going through the first time. Now, this one isn't as activating as my initial one that I took through. It's a little bit lighter. It doesn't feel as intense or heavy, but there are little tests showing up around it. And so I think it's a perfect opportunity to have a lighter touch, lighter approach with this one limiting belief. And I will share with you guys and let you know what comes up and what we dive into. And without further ado, let's jump into the process this week with Coreen.
And now a word from our partners.
So I'm sure you've heard the benefits of red light therapy. It can improve wound healing, reduce stretch marks, fine lines, wrinkles, age spots, improve facial texture, improve scarring, sun-damaged skin. And it really works by stimulating the mitochondria in our cells. When it does that, it helps stimulate the collagen production, giving our skin its structure, strength, elasticity, and improves fibroblast production, which helps create the collagen and all the connective tissue that builds our skin, increases blood circulation, reduces inflammation in cells. And two incredible products that I've been using lately, if you've followed me on Instagram, you've seen this crazy looking mask that I've had on, and it is the Bond Charge Red Light Face Mask. It is such an incredible product. It has red light and near infrared light directly positioned on top of your face. So you can just hook it on, put the Velcro in the back, and its little controller you can pop in your pocket and walk around and go about your day. You can do it while you're doing the dishes or your morning routine or meditating, and you just need it on for 10 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week minimum to see those significant results. I notice the weeks that I am consistent with it, I can notice a more glowing skin texture. It brings color back to my face. It helps support some of those fine lines, especially around my eyes and my forehead. And it's just such an incredible beauty hack. They just released a brand new product to go along with it, the Red Light Neck and Chest Mask. So if you are someone that is looking down at their phone all the time, which I'm very guilty of, and you start to get those lines around your neck, or if you have any sun damage or wrinkles or lines on your chest, it covers that exact area. I also just love every product by Bond Charge because it is so science-backed. It is the lowest EMF you can possibly get, and it is the most effective and strongest wavelengths, the most optimal wavelengths that you can use in red light therapy. It truly is best in class and best in industry in face masks out there, and priced so well. Some other red light face masks out there are more than double in price. And you can get 15% off if you use code MAGNETIC. That's all caps MAGNETIC, and get 15% off your Bond Charge Red Light Face Mask or your Bond Charge Red Light Neck and Chest Mask, or any other biohacking red light products from Bond Charge. Again, that's code MAGNETIC, all caps MAGNETIC, for 15% off. Check out the link in the show notes or go to bondcharge.com.
All right, on to the episode.
I'm so excited to have you on today, Coreen, to talk about your manifestation story, what you've gone through, what you've manifested. So welcome.
Thanks, Jessica. I am so excited to be here today. I can't even tell you.
Let's start off. What is your sun, moon, and rising sign in astrology?
So I am a Taurus sun, a Sagittarius moon, and a Libra rising.
And how do you feel like that presents for you?
I feel like, so my Taurus, I think I have a lot of the very traditional characteristics for a Taurus. Love me some food. I love luxury, peace, beautiful aesthetics. I am a little stubborn, which I have a lot of resistance to that word. But I like to think of it more as like a fixed mindset. Like when I want something, I am going to do everything I can to get it. And then the flip side of that is I need to also learn how to be able to let go to the attachments of things, which is one of the biggest things I'm working on right now. My Sag moon, I feel like helps me balance out a little bit. I love to travel. I've moved many points in my life. So I feel like it gives me the good adventure. And then my Libra side, I'm very good at keeping the peace. I'm very detail oriented. I see the balance. I'm like, let's just keep it all light and fluffy. So I feel like that's where my inner Libra comes out.
Well, it's also interesting having the Taurus and the Sag because you probably travel is a must for you. That is part of your authenticity, 100% is like the beautiful luxuries and aesthetics of life. So I think that's like good permission for other people out there too. If you're that person that's moving every couple of years or, loves to get up and travel, that is your authenticity. Lean into it, like don't apologize for it. Like that is you living in your true authentic self.
Yes, I totally agree.
And what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how has that informed who you are today?
So I am a Mexican American. My mom was born and raised in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, in Mexico. She came over to the States when she was in her teens. It was very interesting growing up, I would say. I feel like when she came over, the mindset was very much like, we need to assimilate, we need to blend in. We don't really want to be too Mexican. There's like this joke in the movie Selena that's like, we're not Mexican enough for the Mexicans. We're not American enough for the Americans. And I really resonated with that for a lot of my life, where when I was with my American friends or in a school setting, I was trying very hard to be a wider version of myself. And when I was with family, it was like, put that aside. Now we're Mexican. Now we're all only speaking Spanish. So it was a big juxtaposition of how I was. And then I think kind of like growing into high school, I was very fortunate to go to private schools for the majority of my life. And it was just a very different experience from growing up like in East Los Angeles and having that more Mexican culture. So it was like I had both sides. And it was definitely a bit of a challenge.
Did you feel like you struggled with understanding who your authenticity was and what that meant of like, okay, well, I feel like I fit in these groups, but then there's a totally different version of me and I really fit in with these groups and both feel authentic? How did you basically integrate both of them and also witness, okay, I'm actually not being my full self here? How are you able to look at that in a deeper way?
I feel like I'm still working on that. Like I said, growing up, there was a lot of pressure to be both sides. And even just saying it out loud feels strange to say, like, it looked like the American side was like studious and knowledge. And that was one path. And the other path was like growing up Mexican and being like small-minded, which I definitely do not think any Mexican is small-minded by any means, but that was kind of it was the fear of falling into that and fear of not being able to excel. Even like up until my 20s, the way that I talk, the way that I dress, the way that I presented myself in a corporate setting was so different than I would when I was with friends and when I would be one-on-one with people. And I remember this one time I worked in event production for many, many years, and this vendor, we worked one-on-one only out on the phone. So I had never seen him in person. And I show up to the event. He comes up to me. He was like, "Hi, I'm looking for Coreen." And I was like, "I'm Coreen." And he goes, "No offense, but you sound white over the phone." And I was like, "That's on purpose. Can I help you with something?" This is still happening, like this, it's such a prevalent thing where we can't show up the way that we just authentically want to show up. And so yeah, I feel like I'm still very much integrating that. And especially even with like me opening my own company, I want to be so conscious of what I'm creating and how I'm showing up for myself, how I'm showing up for my team, how I want to portray to our community of what we're doing and who's welcome. So it's definitely shaped me a lot.
I think it's so fascinating and also so courageous and bold to be in society that conditions us with certain programming that we know is limiting, that we know is holding us back, others back. And yet there are real life situations in which if you abide by the societal norms, you can benefit, right? Like that's the structure of society that we live in. And yet say, okay, I know that's what you want me to do, but I'm going to do my authentic way to do it, doubling down on that and creating spaces in which that can be celebrated is so important to chipping away at that societal structure that kind of limits everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is such a like different way of living. It's a different way of approaching things. And I feel very lucky that I get to be a person who's like, all right, I'm going to do something different. And I'm not going to let people tell me that I have to show up a certain way in order to have the high paying jobs, in order to have the success that comes with that. And I can just be me, whatever and however that looks like. And I'm still figuring that out, but at least I can figure it out, you know?
Yes, I love it. So what brought you to TBM? I know people are starting to get a sense of like, okay, she was in corporate, now she has her own job. Okay, what's the journey? They're starting to get a feel for it. So what brought you to TBM and what did your life look like at that point so people can start to get a vision for the shift?
So I started TBM. Actually, I just realized this summer is my 4-year anniversary. So I started summer of 2020. It was during peak pandemic, right? It was summer of 2020, and I was in such an in-between place in my life. I had previously left a corporate job that I knew I was very unhappy in. I was still trying to figure things out. I started working for a small company she also did event production, but she was a Mexican owner. She led her own team. She was like a fully self-funded business. So I was like, okay, I knew that I wanted to start a business at some point. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I was like, let me start learning. So I worked with her for 4 months and it was lovely, but then the pandemic came across and she couldn't keep me on board. So it was the first time in my life that I really had a pause. I really had a break from going, and my self-worth just totally tanked. I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't wanna go back to events, but I have no clue what I'm gonna do from here. So I was just breathing through that, but I also had a lot of not so healthy tendencies at the time. I was drinking a lot. I just didn't really have any really structure. I was so unaware of how my life was going to that point. So summer 2020, I moved to Philadelphia with a close friend of mine, and I was like, let me just start over. It's my go-to. I'm like, let's just start from scratch. So I came to Philadelphia, and then I was still super lost, and I had a ping come through. I didn't know it was a ping yet. It said, post on social media and ask for support, whether it's spiritual or whatever. And I grew up very Catholic, so spirituality was very different for me, but I had a calling. I put a little thing on Instagram and a few people responded. They were like the 4 Agreements and a couple other really great books. And my friend Nicole, who's now my accountability buddy, responded and said, you should check out TBM. And I was like, okay, I'll check them out. And I think I did the free clarity workshop and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And because I had done a lot of therapy in my life, and I love therapy, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I was missing this deeper level. And the moment that I did a meditation, the DI, I was like, there is something here. And I went all in. I'm going to do inner child workshop, and I'm going to do the unblocked, and I'm going to do all of the things. And I was so excited. And I realized that even with that, I had so many blocks because as I was writing my first manifestation list, I was like, this is silly. I don't know what I want. And I think it was really more a fear of being able to ask for what I want because I know what I want. Like I have these big dreams, but I've always been like, let's be realistic. Let's see what's actually possible. And so it was the first time that I really gave myself permission to think way outside of the box and go for something bigger. So that's how I got started with TBM, and I have never stopped since.
I love that. And it also just gets me so excited hearing people's initiation kind of story with TBM and how they found it, because I had such a similar feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been searching for. It's that it feels self-facilitating. And then when you have the DIs and you have Lacey's voice guiding you through, you're like, oh, wow, like it feels safe to drop into this and drop into my own subconscious while being guided through this, through the journal prompts and online. So there's just something kind of magical when it clicks. And I love that you said that you didn't know what you want to manifest, because I think so many people don't when it comes to writing their list, or they have big dreams, but they see like, oh, it has to be realistic in 6 to 12 months. And immediately they're like, I don't think I could do that. And then they start to get perfectionistic of like, well, what is the thing I should call in? Like, if this is some incredible magic I'm going to be creating, like, what if I call in this thing and I don't like it? Am I sure I really want that thing? And so I think there can be a lot of pressure. And I think this sort of expands people to alleviate the pressure, because you were just like, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to step out of my box of what I think is possible. And I'm just going to write down what's on my heart and know that whatever transpires is always going to be for your highest good. And even if you get a manifestation where you're like, I don't know if I like this anymore, great. Go through the process and get a new one. You've got this. You don't have to second guess the things that are on your heart. And you know what those things are too. Deep down, everyone knows there are some things that I just really want out there.
Yes, 100%. And I think like the perfectionism is such a thing when it comes to manifestation, because even within my head, I'm like, oh, I should dream bigger, or maybe this isn't exactly how it's going to play out. And I have this fear of creating an attachment. So yeah, it's such an interesting mix, but I love that like with TBM, there's a lot of freedom to do things our own way, right? So for me, I don't always typically manifest with a specific list, but I will have a feeling behind it. How do I really want to feel about this? Like right now, I'm looking for a new apartment. I'm moving this summer. And there's this fear inside of me right now that's like, what if it's not as good as the one I'm in now? And what if this? And what if that? And when all of those thoughts come in, I'm just like, okay, picture yourself in the space. Aside from the little things, aside from like having a nice bathroom and washer dryer, how do I want to feel in that moment? And I feel like it's so powerful to even have those tools.
Oh my gosh. You're expanding me even going through that, because I'm in a very similar process in moving. And there's so much, even though we really need a bigger space, there's so much about the space that we're in now that we love, like the lighting that comes in, the sun that pours through, like the neighborhood surrounding us. There's just a lot to love. And what if we get more space, but we lose out on all these other things? What if? And it's like, okay, A, let's enjoy this. And B, any place that I've ever moved into had that like, this is it feeling. And it was really exciting and new and felt nourishing and felt aligned. So why would I think that wouldn't happen again? Even if the light doesn't come in exactly the same way, I'll be good. I'll have the feeling. So what started presenting when you started going through this work? What did you have on your list initially, and how did things start to transpire as you were going through the unblocking work?
So for me, the work really started around my parents. I had known that I had my issues with my parents. My dad was not in my life growing up. He had a separate family. So I grew up with a single mom, and it was tough. It was a lot of moments where she was super independent. She showed her strength by not showing emotions and by being stoic. I think she also had a lot of fears of marriage and relationships that she projected onto me. Her mindset was like, just be independent, just be single, carry on by yourself. You're going to be safer that way. I really internalized a lot of that. And then with my father, he was like totally not present. He would pop in from time to time and he would act like he wanted to be a father figure again. And then the reality of that would set in for him and he would disappear again. The story that I was telling myself around my father was, if my dad doesn't love me, how could anybody else love me? And it took a really long time to process that and get over that. And it really affected my whole childhood, really up until 3 years ago, probably. I kept repeating that story, and it was like I was looking for confirmation that that was true. I would go through relationships, I would go through work, and I would continue to play small because I was like, maybe they'll like me better this way, or maybe, let me see how I can fit in order to feel safe and feel loved. So when I finally started the To Be Magnetic work, I started asking my mom a lot of questions. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, Mom, I just started this program. It's called To Be Magnetic. I have a lot of questions for you, like, whatever you want to answer. And she was like, okay. So I started asking her all of these questions, and it was tough for both of us. Like, we had a lot of we cried a lot, we laughed a lot. Even having those conversations with her, like I said, my mom was always like, just ignore things that are going wrong in life and they'll go away. So for us to be like, okay, let's talk this through, I think was really huge for us. And even with that, my mom started her own healing journey. I'm so proud of her, especially as a Latina woman. She goes to therapy on her own. And this was all like her choice. She was like, you know what? I'm so proud of you for the work that you're doing. And I need to do this for myself and for my kids. So I'm just so grateful for that.
Seeing the impact that you doing your own healing work has on other people around you, specifically your family, and what transpires around your entire lineage because of it, I think is some of the most powerful things that can come from this work. Like, obviously it's manifesting the nice thing, but it's really about deep soul healing. It's about true authenticity, true worthiness through every generation. Facing those difficult conversations, it's a really beautiful thing. And for anyone out there, if you've done our inner child workshop, you know those questions where you're like, oh shit. And even I find it interesting too, because some people, when they go through the work, maybe their parent is no longer alive or not able to have that conversation with them. I always say to people, like, just intuit, feel into your gut, put yourself in the shoes of where you know your parent was at the time from the information you do know. Just listen to your heart. What do you feel like they went through? The fact that you were like, oh, I know that my dad wasn't around, like this couldn't have been good. We know a little bit there too. So no pressure if that is your experience as well too.
So true.
One major manifestation the TBM team has had over the years is switching all of our platforms, workshops, and memberships over to Kajabi. Kajabi is an all-in-one business platform for entrepreneurs. It makes it easy to build, market, and sell your online courses, your membership sites, coaching programs, and so much more. You don't need to worry about coding or plugins or any broken integrations. It syncs up every single piece of the puzzle. Before, we had to have like 4 different platforms and websites, none of which communicated well to each other in order to have our online membership. Now everything is on Kajabi. All of our membership, we even have our own custom app on there, and our incredible community group, which they're continuing to add new features to all the time. So if you are someone who's looking to take their community group or website or membership or digital products online and start selling them, you can do that from zero to launch in a matter of days with Kajabi, even customizing it to your exact design needs. It is your one-stop shop for website, funnels, emails, landing pages, analytics, payments, and so much more. I cannot recommend it enough. It is so easy to use and so incredible to be able to offer all of this on one platform. If you want to try out Kajabi risk-free for 30 days, go to the link in the show notes. Our To Be Magnetic campaign offer allows you to try for 30 days for free. Test it out, see if it works for you. I promise you will not look back. It is the best choice you can make for an online business. What were you manifesting at that time? What was on your list that you were calling in?
So at the time, I was really looking for clarity. On my list itself, I was looking for an apartment in Philadelphia. And what I wrote, which I thought was really interesting, was a career where I felt respected. And when I looked back on that, I was like, that's what I wrote? That's so interesting, because I don't even really remember that. So I love being able to go back on it. And then I also was looking for, I wanted to buy a duplex in Philadelphia to be able to rent out and have supplemental income. So that was on my list. And I did find a job that I did feel very respected in. I had a lot of creative freedom. I was able to build a team and lead a team. It brought me travel. It was kind of like the job that I wanted before I started to be magnetic. Then it came through finally, like, here's your moment. I think it was a bit of a like test, but I did it anyway, and zero regrets. I met so many people that are still really good friends of mine, and that's actually how I ended up moving to New York. So those were like the main things on my list. The duplex didn't come through, which I think makes total sense because I needed to refocus my career. And really the biggest manifestation that came through that I didn't write down was clarity around my purpose. I always knew that there was something that I was going to do. And so I got this big fancy job that I had always wanted. And that still didn't feel good. I was like, there's something that I'm missing. And so I think clarity was the biggest manifestation that I didn't really write on my list. And that came through because I was doing the work. I started talking to astrologers. A Reiki practitioner came out of nowhere that my roommate knew. I just said yes to everything. Why not? I'll give anything a try. I had also been going through a lot of health issues at the time. In 2019, I ended up in the hospital. I was just going through so many pains and concerns that my doctors were like, you're fine, you're healthy, your labs are good. And I was like, there's no way that I'm healthy. I don't feel good. I have rashes. I have all of these things. My periods are horrendous. And they're like, yeah, that's normal. And I was starting to get like really angry. This can't be normal. You can't just keep telling me that I'm normal. So that's partially where the herbalism came in. I had started seeking out different doctors because of COVID and I had the time. I was like, let me talk to a naturopath. Let me talk to a dietitian. What's the holistic side of this? Sure enough, I found out I wasn't ovulating for many, many years. My hormones were totally disbalanced. Everything was pretty much off. So when I found herbalism, I was like, I'm going down this path. I know it. And then it was crazy because my corporate job laid me off. So this was like 2022, early 2022. I had just started learning more about herbalism and then they laid me off and I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do from here. And I saw a post for an apprenticeship at Transcending Roots Apothecary in Philadelphia. And I remember seeing it and my whole body, I was like, I am getting this. I didn't even apply. I was like, I'm getting this. I know it for a fact. Of course, I did eventually apply and I did get it. And I knew it. I knew it. I felt it in my whole body. And then literally the next week, my job called me and they were like, hey, sorry about laying you off. We would love for you to come back. It was still an events job. So like more events started coming in. I told them, I was like, I'll come back. I want the same salary, but I'm going to work less days because now I have my apprenticeship. And so I'm going to need time off for all of that. And they were like, okay, just block off your calendar for whatever you need. Okay, great. Love this. So I did both. It was definitely challenging because one side was super plants and medicine and camping and foraging. And then the other side was like intense meetings and corporate agendas. And it was just like such a mix. I was like, this is a lot. I can't do all of this. So I kept going for a bit. I probably did that for about a year and a half. And then last winter, so 2023, I got laid off completely again. All right, what am I going to do now? My company had a really bad history of doing this over and over. I had been saved a few times, but I had been on the chopping block a few times. And I was like, I'm just so done with this. I'm tired of living by the means of others. I'm tired of working hours that I don't want to work. I was working like 16 hours a day. It was insane. So they laid me off. And also at the same time, I had been like in a bit of a situationship where he crashed my car and it was like a very minor crash. So we were very surprised when the company called and they were like, hey, it's totaled. You're just going to get a payout. It's not worth fixing the car. So I got $13,000 from that at the same time of getting laid off. And I took that as the ultimate sign to, one, leave my situationship and also not go back to a corporate job.
What I'm hearing so loudly, hearing you lay it all out like this, is how much this is connected to you. You're looking for your purpose. Come on, let's do this. Let's do this. And then having that full body ping of like, oh, this is the mentorship program I should be in. I have to do this. And even your job coming back around and saying, okay, actually, we have more work for you. Come back in. You can still do the apprenticeship at the same time. It's fine. That was your bridge to like save up, FU fund, start to really get a foundation of confidence in herbalism. And then I bet you that there was a period, both in your situationship and in the corporate job, where you weren't listening to the signs to leave. You were probably getting very subtle or not so subtle hints that were like, this person is not aligned for you and this job is no longer aligned for you. And I would guess you probably were like, yeah, but it's fine. And then it's like rock bottom. It's like, okay, you're not getting it. So get rid of the corporate job. Do you see the red flags enough on the situationship? Let's cut that one out. You have a purpose to fill, girl. Like, what are you doing?
Oh my God, you are reading me like a book because 100%, there were so many signs. There were so many signs. And I was like, everything's fine. I feel like I was in my ego where the situationship, although there was a lot that I was not happy with, I was still getting a lot, or in my head, it was the most that I had ever received in a partnership. So it was hard leaving that. It was hard to say like, okay, like it's up to me to either stay or leave. And it was the exact same thing with the job where it was good enough, right? Like I had the respect that I wanted. I had the money that I wanted. I had so many things that it allowed me to like go out and spend and drop hundreds of dollars at dinner because it was fun. And as a tourist, I love doing that. It gave me a lot of safety in my savings. And there was so many things that as much as I physically knew that I was not in the space that I wanted to be in, it was definitely hard to walk away from so many things that I had been manifesting up until that point, because they all were manifestations that came through, and walking away was for sure hard.
That's something you mentioned in your submission too, about how the manifestations you call in at one age or chapter in your life, at another chapter in your life, they could become your tests because you've outgrown them. And so trying to understand, at what point have I outgrown this manifestation? Have I outgrown this dynamic? And I think you nailed it in saying that the reason we ignore those pings to leave or to change or make the situation different is because we're still getting something positive from it. We wouldn't be in those situations if it was all bad all the time. We would make a shift. But because we're still getting something out of it, it's like, well, can I settle for the things that I don't like? And I think with the To Be Magnetic work, it's constantly allowing you to question, where are you really compromising your worth, your authenticity, your purpose, your soul's path to just get breadcrumbs in certain places? And to think more of yourself and what you deserve. And I think also the situationship, that's such a beautiful thing to think, wow, this is the most love I have received in a relationship up to this point. That is an amazing expander. Soak all of that in and know that you are deserving of even more. You are deserving of the whole package. There's no shame if you want to enjoy that situationship for a little longer, let that expansion soak in. And then eventually you're going to have to say, okay, I trust that it's this or something better. That's also what I love sticking to too, is okay, but if I say no to this, it'll be this or something better because I'm actually choosing me. I'm loving me the way I want to be loved. And I think that is something that's so huge. You also wrote about being your own expander, looking back at jumping off a cliff in the past. How did you utilize your own expansion moments to navigate this next chapter?
Oh my God, yes. So in 2019 is really when a lot of my health issues started coming in. That's when I landed in the hospital and I had started making some changes in my life. I was in a different relationship where we had just gone way past our expiration date and we both were still like, this is easy enough. So here we are. I was drinking a lot at the time. I was working a lot and there was just a lot that I was unhappy with. But like I said, at that point, I had zero tools. I had no way of knowing. And I definitely did not believe that I would find better at that point. So I just started slowly making changes. I was with a new friend group. I started working out more and eating healthier. And I was slowly starting to feel better. And then I really saw that it was my job that was making me very unhappy. So there was a few things that kind of happened in between, but also like the flip side, I was doing the coolest events in my career. I was one of the most sought after producers. There was so many things that I was traveling all over the country doing events that we hadn't even really done that as a company before. So my ego was thriving. But internally, I was not okay. And I finally decided to leave. So I went to my boss's office and I was like, hey, I'm putting in my notice. I will give you a 1-month notice and I'm leaving. And they were like, you're being irrational. Do you need a break? Just take some time. What do you need? And I was like, no, like, because I've been telling you that I need help. I've been telling you that I'm not okay. I don't feel supported and I'm leaving. I did find another job they matched my pay exactly what I was making at my job. And like I said, she was a Latina founder. She's an amazing woman, super supportive. And I was like, do you see? I did it. And it was 100% such an expansive moment for me because especially now that I'm aware of magnetism and how the whole process works, I realized that I took the leap, I surrendered, I deserve something better than this, and I'm gonna find it, and I'm not gonna hold myself back from this. And then it came through, and a lot of people still were doubting me, and they were like, this wasn't a good choice, right? Like, it worked out for you this time, but it may not work out next time. And I'm like, we'll see.
I love that, especially A, for self-expansion, but B, because it just details even when you were telling the story and you were describing, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. You could see on your face the level of, this is a grounded decision. You know, you might have been emotional at the moment, but this has been something that you were feeling for a long time, and you hit it's like the breaking point. It's the tipping point. This moment of, okay, I've been settling. And then at some point you get so sick of your shit or the shit or whatever you're settling for that your brain is like, I'm ready to choose that I believe a different story now. I feel safe enough to start believing this new story. Let's take that action. And that's what creates the magnetism, the empowered no. When you say no from a place of true worthiness and deservingness that like, I'm not going to take this shit anymore, so much opens up on the other side.
I totally agree. It feels so good. I'm trying to like stop myself before I get to that breaking point because that's one of my patterns where I'm like, I can hold on forever and then everything goes to shit. There was a lot of signs that I should have stopped this a while ago. So I'm trying to like get to that point for myself. But yeah, there is so much power in that expansion and just knowing like, I want to feel the way that I want to feel. And I'm so done carrying this old energy and this old mindset.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the Magnetic Self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the daily practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, MAGNETIC. Now back to the episode.
So you were like thinking of this expander moment. Fast forward to when you were like, okay, I'm leaving the corporate job again, finally done, out of the situationship. He's cut off. We're starting anew. You have the 13,000. You're like, okay, I'm ready for this next chapter. I think you mentioned you went into the winter challenge, right?
I did. I think the winter challenge was literally right when all of this was happening. And I was like, okay, my life is in shambles now. This is fine. And honestly, it was just a lot of nervous system work for myself. I was so dysregulated. I didn't feel ready to do really anything. I didn't feel ready to leave my situationship. I didn't feel fully ready to leave the job financially. I didn't feel like I could start my business, which is, I knew that that was the direction I wanted to go in, but it just felt so unsafe. I'm not a certified herbalist. There was so many things that I was telling myself I wasn't ready to do. I allowed myself to create my company, which is called Inner Pattern. And I was like, just start posting, just start being real, just say how you're feeling, which for me was extremely difficult as someone who grew up very emotionally unavailable. So I started making little videos on, actually it was my personal account first before I started Inner Pattern. And I just was vulnerable and I was like, hey guys, I lost my job this year and it's really hard. And as a perfectionist and a workaholic, I'm going through it. And I just want to tell you guys how I'm feeling. And that was so scary, but I did it. I can do this. I can just start talking about myself and my life, and we'll see where this goes. So February, I really took the time to get down to the work, right? Like I started journaling a lot. I was like, okay, what are like viable business ideas? What can I do today that is going to lead me to the next step? And I was talking to a friend of mine and she was like, what about like a kit, like an herbal wellness kit? And I was like, it's genius. I love it. I'm going to do it. And so I started like writing all of these things down. And I feel like I just needed that little bit of permission to give to myself so I can finally start my company. And I went all in. I created the LLC. It's happening. The herbal kit didn't actually come through, but I needed that idea to start creating products, to start talking about my business, to create my plan. So I decided to throw myself a launch party in April. So it was actually all pretty quickly that it came together. I'm also fortunate. I have a lot of friends who work in events. And so they helped me out. They're like, let's do this. So I threw a launch party April 2023. And even then, people were like, so what is Inner Pattern? What are you going to do? We're going to do things. We're going to heal. It's going to be fun. I'm figuring it out. And they were like, okay, that's fine. We're supporting. So I feel like last year for me was all about following the pings. I followed every single ping that came my way. Any thought that came through, I'm going to go to this coffee shop, or I'm going to work here, or I'm just whatever. I'm going to go and do wherever you lead me. I'm like surrendering. My friend Nicole, she said, Coreen, you're great in person. You need to get out there and start meeting people. Because I was hosting little events here and there, but they were very small. It didn't really have traction. She was like, do like street markets. And I was like, oh God, a street market. That sounds horrible. Okay, fine, I'll do it. So I started searching on Google, like spiritual markets. And I actually found quite a few. And I dove in. I was like, okay, this is the next step. So summer, I was doing all of the markets. I was meeting a lot of amazing people. I needed to tap into the spiritual community here in New York. So that's what came from that. And then it rained in New York City last year. Every single weekend in New York City, there was rain. And so every street market got canceled. What the hell? I followed the ping and now everything went away. What is happening? And I was just super overwhelmed. I was working a part-time job at an acupuncture studio to help me in between, but I was pretty bored there. And I feel like it was making me less creative overall, but I couldn't financially leave. I couldn't expand inner pattern. I just felt really stuck. I actually went to the To Be Magnetic event that was in New York here last fall. And I remember at that point, I felt just so overwhelmed. I cannot add a single other thing on my plate. If anybody asks me to do a single thing, I'm just going to snap. I'm going to snap. So I go to the event and we did I think it was the missing piece DI together. And just like doing it in community, I think was so profound. The amount of visuals that I got, I don't really get visuals during DIs that much, but I literally saw my heart closed off. It was actually really funny. It was like a cartoon heart. And my heart was in curlers, like grandma style. The heart was like, I am in hibernation mode. And so I checked in and I was like, hey, how are you doing in here? And she was like, fine. And she brought out a broom and was like sweeping the cobwebs. And I think that's when I realized that I was just really closed off to my heart space. I was in work mode. I was trying to be productive. I was trying to push through because that's the only way I know. And my heart was like, we're closed off. You're not even working from here right now. So working in that event with To Be Magnetic really helped me open up a little bit more and loosen up whatever was going in my heart space. I internalized that, and then I actually surrendered. My mom's birthday's in October, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Los Angeles and spend time with my mom. I took, I think, 2 weeks, which felt crazy at the time from someone who wasn't like full-time employed. I took 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm just going to go spend time with my mom and celebrate her birthday and have a great time. When I was there, I kept feeling like I wanted to have a location. I need to be around people. This is the next path. But I had zero clue how I was going to financially afford it. So I was thinking about it. It was just like heavy on my mind. My last day in Los Angeles, I was driving my mom's car around and I thought to myself, I wonder if this yoga studio called Yug Wellness has a room or something. I had been there before. They're local to Astoria where I live. And I had only seen like one floor of theirs, which was very cute, but I didn't know that they had spaces. I thought that to myself. Literally, I parked, I pull up my phone, and they posted on Instagram, like, room for rent at Yug. What? So I freaked out, and I was like, this has to be a sign. There's no way why would I have just thought about them? So I instantly reach out. I was like, hey, I'm just curious. In my head, I was like, I can't afford, it could be the cheapest rent. I can't afford it. But whatever, let's just see what it is. Reached out and she was like, hey, yeah, come by if you're interested. So I went literally like the moment I landed from LA to New York. I went in and I was just like, this is it. I want this. But again, I was like, how are we going to make this happen? And she says to me, you know, there's been a few women who came through who are also Reiki practitioners and healers, and they want to rent on an hourly basis. I don't have the capacity to do that, but maybe you do. I totally do. I can do that. And that's where it like clicked for me. I was like, this is how it's going to work. I don't have to do this by myself. I can collaborate with people. And so I went all in. I called her 5 minutes later. I'm in. And then I started meeting more practitioners. And now I have a team of 10 people. And it was just amazing the way that it all came through. That point in my life, I feel like I was the most magnetic I've ever felt. I woke up one morning and I was like, I really want somebody who does Thai body work. And then somebody came in that afternoon who was like, hey, I do Thai body work. I'm interested in talking to you. And I was like, what is happening? It was crazy.
I love this story so much because it also shows you like how those little actions over and over again can make such a big shift. I think the year that you initially had that rock bottom moment to when you were like, okay, I'm putting an inner pattern in the world, and things start to magnetize. Like you had that launch party, you were at all the markets, pings were coming through, you were following all of the pings. And sometimes when you have momentum like that, there's the urge to like, okay, what's next? Like I can't lose the momentum. And that's where you get that disconnect from your heart space. You're listening to the ping for a result. You're not listening to the ping with like openness and curiosity. What's the next task I need to do on my list? And let me just fill it with tons of stuff to do without actually checking with my heart space of, does this feel good? Do I want to do this? Does this feel aligned? Where do I need to clear space? Where do I need to slow down? Where I need to honor my needs? And taking that, okay, I don't have everything in my career figured out to a T yet. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. Knowing that that is what you needed and trusting yourself that you would be okay. And actually you doing that is going to like shoot you ahead so much further than you could have just by trying to grind it out in like the mental space is the medicine. You know, Lacey always says like the opposite is the medicine. So if you're just trying to grind and you're like, I'm not getting the clarity, I don't know, I'm not in my heart space, take a break, take a step back, take a moment of reflection, take a pause. Back to even society conditioning. We have to always be hustle, hustle. It's like actually sometimes the best thing you could do for your business is to take a moment to slow down and get back into that energy of joy and the heart space. And it makes perfect sense that you would get that massive ping for the space there. Immediately you get the notification that they're looking for someone in that space. It's incredible, but it also doesn't surprise me. I'm like, because you got yourself into that authentic magnetic state of grounded regulation.
Yes. And it's so funny because I feel like right now I'm going through that phase again where I was disconnected from my heart space a little bit. I was feeling super run down. Every part of me was like, just run away, just pretend this isn't happening. And I can't keep doing that. I can't keep running away. I can take a break. I can pause for myself, but running isn't the answer. And I think I was spiritual bypassing for a bit too these past few months where I was like, everything's going to work out. Like the money's going to come. I'm doing this from an authentic place. So the money's coming, which is true. And I do believe that. But also I wasn't doing little things like taking care of my taxes and staying on top of my budget. And, you know, I feel like the universe is like, show us that you're ready to receive the next thing. You're not financially ready if you have debt and taxes that you're not taking care of. You need to show up in that way. And it's actually so crazy because I had that ping come through. I was journaling at night. And the next morning, I made a to-do list for myself. Handle the taxes, follow up on the budget. There was like a few things that I knew that I needed to do. The next morning, I didn't make drama about it. Here I go doing my things. I had also checked in. I listened to the TBM podcast, which somehow, normally I listen to it weekly. Somehow I hadn't listened in the past few weeks. And I was like, how did that happen? Like, it's a part of my routine. So I was like, let me put it on. I got in the shower. I was getting ready. And then literally that same day, I got the email from To Be Magnetic saying that you guys wanted to talk to me more about the podcast. And I was like, you see, Coreen, do your taxes and good things will happen.
I love that. I also want to give licensing to anyone who has ever been in that burnout cycle because I am so familiar with that, especially being in a career path that I love, that I know is so aligned for my soul and feels so authentic and lights me up. And I have been on the hamster wheel of like, there are chapters where I feel so burnt out. And then I take a break or vacation or lighten the load or whatever it is. And then I'm like, okay, everything's good again. And then I go, somehow I like ramp back up and I'm in burnout again. And I look at the cycle of how that happened, and that's really the theme that I was taking through this recent challenge. Why can I not consistently prioritize my needs? Why does it come in this up and down wave? And yes, there are life things that happen. Sometimes there's outside life circumstances, family things that show up that are going to put you in that I am doing too much right now, or I have too many emotional burdens that I'm ignoring and not sitting with, and I need to really process my emotions or my grief or whatever it is. But one of the biggest things I learned with that up and down cycle is that it is really about how you relate to the day-to-day of certain things and how your nervous system relates to them. I was noticing when the task list of things to do was so big, I would just be like, okay, I'll just do like all of it right now and try to get it done and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd be so exhausted at the end of the day, like in a total burnout freeze mode. And then I would ignore working out. I would ignore cleaning my apartment. I would ignore all these things because I literally didn't have the energy for it. Why can't we just take one small step different, which is let's ground ourselves before we even look at our task list. Let's then plot out what is feasible in today. Maybe all these tasks are not feasible today, and that's okay. And how can I start to prioritize that end of day just as much as I prioritize the task list? So it's not a whole life overhaul. It's those little moments where you just go back to those old patterns of how to handle stress and how do you handle stress in a new way. Like I loved how you were just saying, okay, it's about the money, it's about the taxes. I'm afraid of looking at money in this moment, and I know I have to step through this fear. And I like how you were like, there's no drama about it. You didn't work yourself up in your mind. You weren't you were just like, nope, we're just going to show up and we're going to do it. That says to me that you were regulated when you went into doing that task. You weren't in a fight or flight mode. You were like, let's just show up. Let's just do the task. And then let's see what happens. And it's like, thank you. Okay, we've got it. Here's a reward on the other side.
Yes, it's so true. And I feel like it's interesting because it's easy to get caught up in when things are good, right? So in the last fall, when all the manifestations were coming through, and I was like, I'm great. I am so magnetic. I am thriving. And then I got caught up in the work and I stopped doing all of the things that made me feel great and helped me thrive. And then all of a sudden I'm dysregulated and things aren't working. And I thought I was on the right path. What's going on? When it's like, but what are you doing? And I think there's part of me that's like, well, I just want to be good without having to do all of this work, right? I don't want to have to like do a meditation every day, but why not? If it makes you feel good, there's nothing wrong with doing that work. It's not a stigma. It's not a negative thing. It's just a part of what helps you feel good. So I'm really trying to integrate that right now.
I think the other thing is reframing, especially with manifestation work. You do the work and you get a reward. It's like this reward cycle, right? And can you see the reward as just showing up for yourself? When a big manifestation just came through and you're like, oh, I have all the things. I don't need a reward right now. So I'm not going to show up for myself and do all the self-care that I know makes me feel good. How about just showing up for yourself is the reward, is the thing that's going to set yourself up in every other aspect of your life? Because I think it's like once a lot comes through, there's the inclination to be like, okay, I'm done. I'm on this new pedestal. I'm on this new level. I'm good. I don't need to think about it anymore. And it's like, we're human. We're going to have emotions. We're going to have, up and downs. We're going to have challenges. We're going to have tests. We're going to have triggers. Even if we're not in the process of manifesting something big at the moment, life is still going to hit us. How can we take care of ourselves, resource ourselves enough that when those up and down waves do come, we're good. We have a baseline that's there that we know, okay, big emotion. Let's go and process that. Let's go journal on it. Let's go, move it out in our bodies on a walk or something like that. I think that's so key that you said that.
So true. I love that. I'm going to need to write that on my mirror or something. The day-to-day is the reward, not the big shiny manifestation.
What is one message you would want to send to your younger self now knowing what you know and having gone on this journey?
Oh my God. I would tell her that she is so deeply loved, no matter what she does or what she doesn't do. She is always loved. And I would tell her that she was right. Follow my intuition because it has always led me the right way. And I think I very much lost track of my intuition throughout my childhood. So I would just let her know that Everything she feels is so real, and she does not need to do or be anything to have the love that she really deserves.
Oh, I love that so much. Where can people find you, connect with you, and what's next for Inner Pattern? Where can people find you there too?
With Inner Pattern, you can find me personally, Coreen Ruiz, at Coreen Ruiz on Instagram. And my Inner Pattern is at Inner Pattern, INNERPTTRN, because I had to be a little bit different. And there's a lot of amazing things coming for Inner Pattern. Like I said, we now have 10 practitioners. We all do different healing modalities, from Thai body work, pole for the soul, pole dancing for the soul, Reiki, intuitive energy healing, flower essences, so many things. And we actually just launched a membership where you can do all of the things under one cost. So I'm super, super excited for what's to come with Inner Pattern. And I feel like we've really been growing an amazing community. And we're launching some virtual workshops this fall as well with an Indigenous grandmother, Grandmother Nancy. She's going to do teachings for us on how to get back to the Indigenous lifestyle, but really learning more about that and the traditions. So I really feel like my mission with Inner Pattern is to help us get back to a more healing way for ourselves in community. Because I think, especially for me, when I was going through it last year, I desperately was looking for a community. I was looking for some place that I could go and just feel safe, just be able to talk about what I'm going through, and then maybe get a little bit of TLC. And so I created it, and I'm really proud of that. So definitely stay tuned with Inner Pattern and feel free to give us a follow.
I think that's so beautiful. Yeah, the word that kept coming to my mind as you were talking, I was like, oh, community. So many people are manifesting friends and people that are like-minded. This is the type of stuff that you want to be doing. Finding these communities. I love that you're doing virtual stuff now too. This is where you meet that like-minded community and things like Inner Pattern. So congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coreen. This has been so expansive. I'm just so excited for your journey. It's so, so beautiful to see. And it's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. You are the best. I love you guys.
Okay, here's our expander story for the week, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hi, my name's Stephanie. I recently completed the summer challenge, and you guys, I have manifested my dream partner. I can't even believe I'm saying this. Like, I'm smiling ear to ear, and yet I still feel so calm. I started the summer challenge at the beginning of June, and I had identified my core wound, my core block, which was for me all about feeling like my needs are a burden. When I was a young child, I lost a sister when I was about 2 years old. And for me, I really learned that I was there to take care of other people's feelings, and that if I had issues or if I had feelings, they would be a burden to my already suffering family. And that was unfathomable to me. That was not something I could do. I think I've always had the awareness of, this loss in my life, but only in the last few months did I start realizing there might be some stuff to heal here. And with the summer challenge, I really was able to hone in on that wound, which for me was my needs are a burden. And I was really able to reprogram that to my needs are what make me human. My core desires are what make me me. And there's nothing to feel guilty about. And as the whole TBM process the manifestation process goes, I've faced a lot of tests and a lot of triggers and a lot of challenges, but I've been super consistent with the work. And I was on a walk not long after I started the challenge, actually, and I've done the past challenges too, but I was on a walk and I was listening to a TBM podcast, of course, and I had this realization that I love the part of me that's nurturing. I actually love taking care of people. I just always thought it had to be one or the other. I had to be the caregiver or the care receiver. But I was on this walk and I had this realization that I could be both. I could have both. I could give and receive love. And that was a big realization for me. I pulled out my phone. I left myself a voice note where I kind of articulated some of this. And I said a prayer, and I just said, I have spent my whole life choosing partners who are unable to give the care that I desire back to me. And I'm done choosing that. I want to experience what it is to feel cared for, as well as to give love as well. That's really uncomfortable for me, but I'm ready for whatever situation, circumstance, whether it's a man, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a situation, I'm ready for whatever it is, and I trust that it's coming, and that's that. I kid you not, the next morning I get a text from this man who I had met a year before, but things just didn't work out. The timing wasn't right. We hadn't gotten to know each other that well. And when I tell you, the last few weeks have felt like the most nourishing, comforting, aligned experience. This is not an accident. And look, if everything blows up tomorrow, so be it. But this is a huge expander. I'm just so thrilled. And I wanted to share that with you all. Okay, happy manifesting.